He lived longer than his own future plans. At some point, he stopped planning more than a year ahead, not because he lacked imagination, but because the future had already been taken from him once. The moment arrived quietly, disguised as practicality, a conversation, a timeline, a calm explanation of what was likely to come. From that day forward, his life began to shrink in advance. This matters now because we live surrounded by forecasts, retirement ages, health projections, risk scores that quietly decide how much future we believe we are allowed. And once belief collapses, behavior follows. He adjusted quickly, canceled long-term ideas, let go of ambitions meant for later decades. He chose certainty over hope, not out of fear, but responsibility. He sold things meant to last, gave away objects tied to imagined years, simplified his life so no one would be burdened later. It felt mature. It felt prepared. It felt final. At first, the decision brought relief. Without a future to manage, life became lighter. Days narrowed, choices simplified. Nothing needed to be postponed anymore, but time did not cooperate. Months passed without consequence. Then years. Appointments became awkward. Predictions expired without announcement. What unsettled him was not survival. It was continuation. Life kept arriving long after he had stopped preparing for it. The plans he had abandoned did not return. The mindset remained. He lived cautiously, avoided imagining far ahead, as if the future might disappear again if acknowledged. People around him adjusted differently. Some treated each year as borrowed. Others stopped mentioning time at all. No one knew how to speak to someone who had outlived his own expectations. This was not a miracle. Nothing reversed. The body still aged. Limitations still appeared. But the ending never arrived, and that created a new tension. Because living longer is one thing. Living beyond the future, you already closed, is something else entirely. This is the story of what happens next, when time gives back years, after you have already let them go. At first, he treated the extra time as temporary, as if the calendar itself might suddenly correct the mistake and remove the days it quietly added back into his life without explanation or warning. He avoided long commitments, avoided promises that stretched too far forward, avoided imagining a version of himself that still existed years from now, because imagining felt dangerous after certain had already been taken away once before. Each medical appointment reopened the same silent tension, not fear of death, but confusion about direction, because survival without a future plan creates a strange emptiness that optimism alone cannot fill. Friends encouraged him to celebrate, to travel, to enjoy the bonus years. But they did not understand that celebration requires permission to believe the future is real again. Instead, he lived in maintenance mode, not fully withdrawn, not fully engaged, just enough effort to stay intact. Days blended together because they were not connected to anything ahead. No milestone, no destination, no imagined horizon pulling him forward. Time existed, but it lacked gravity. Emotionally, this was heavier than preparing for death, because endings create closure. But continuation without expectation creates uncertainty that never resolves. He noticed something unsettling. The longer he lived this way, the harder it became to reopen his future. Hope, once dismantled, does not reassemble easily. It resists reconstruction. He had trained himself to let go, to minimize attachment, to reduce anticipation. Those skills kept him calm, but they also kept life narrow. Years passed quietly, not triumphantly, not tragically, just persistently. People stopped asking how long he had left. They started assuming he would always be there, and that assumption carried its own pressure, because now he was expected to live again, to plan again, to imagine again. But imagination had become the most fragile muscle of all. This was the true conflict, not survival, but recovery from having already ended your own story. And somewhere inside that conflict, a question began to form, one that could no longer be avoided. What do you do when life gives you time, after you already taught yourself how to live without it? The real tension reached its peak when he realized that surviving longer was no longer the challenge, But relearning how to live expansively after deliberately shrinking his expectations had quietly reshaped his identity over many years. Every decision now carried weight again, not because it was risky, but because it implied belief in a future he had once abandoned with discipline and emotional restraint. Planning felt unnatural, almost irresponsible, as if imagining too far ahead might tempt fate or invite disappointment, or reopen a vulnerability he had carefully sealed when certainty first collapsed. He noticed how deeply this mindset had settled. He hesitated before buying anything meant to last. He resisted commitments that extended beyond a few seasons. He avoided conversations that drifted toward long-term dreams. It was not fear of death. It was fear of hope. Hope had once been dismantled methodically for survival. Rebuilding it felt reckless, because hope creates attachment, and attachment had already been rehearsed as something to let go of. Emotionally, this became exhausting. Living without expectation requires constant restraint. You must monitor imagination, interrupt desire, shorten vision. Every day, people around him aged into their futures. They planned retirements, trips, new chapters. He remained suspended in a present that never expanded. This was the emotional core of the conflict. Longevity had returned time to him, but not permission. Permission to believe, permission to invest, permission to reopen his life to possibility. The irony was sharp. He had survived uncertainty, but certainty had damaged his ability to imagine. The body was no longer the limiting factor. The calendar was no longer the enemy. The obstacle lived entirely in perception. And then, slowly, something shifted. Not through insight, not through advice, but through fatigue. He grew tired of holding life at arm's length, tired of treating every future thought like a liability, tired of surviving without expanding. That exhaustion created space for a different question, one more dangerous than fear. What if the real risk was not hoping again, but continuing to live as if time could still be taken away at any moment? That question did not bring relief. It brought momentum. And momentum, once felt, is difficult to contain. The realization did not arrive as relief, celebration, or gratitude, but as a quiet understanding that living cautiously forever was its own form of loss, even when survival had already been secured. He finally saw it clearly. Preparing for death had protected him once, but continuing to live as if the future were fragile was now slowly erasing it. Time had returned years to him, not as a reward, not as a miracle, but as an invitation he had not yet accepted. Longevity, he understood, is not just about continuing to exist. It is about reopening possibility after certainty collapses, about allowing yourself to imagine again without guarantees, about choosing expansion even when collapse once felt inevitable. The danger was never that life might end early. The danger was ending it emotionally before time ever did. He began to plan again, not recklessly, not desperately, but honestly. A trip months away, a project with no clear ending, conversations that assumed continuity instead of closure. Nothing dramatic changed. The body still aged. Limitations still appeared, but the posture toward time shifted. Instead of asking how much was left, he began asking how fully he was participating. That shift did not erase fear. It made fear irrelevant, because presence replaced prediction, and engagement replaced calculation. This is why his story matters, because many people survive forecasts, but continue living as if they are still under them. They outlive the prediction, but never reclaim the future it took from them. Longevity is not just extra time. It is the courage to reopen life after it has already been mentally closed. And that may be the hardest survival skill of all. He lived